Hey there, Jeb Stewart Johnston here with Compound Performance to deliver another little piece of nutritional nuggets to help make you a better and more well-rounded coach. Like and subscribe, and don't forget to join our email list. It's a great way to stay abreast. You can get these videos delivered right to your inbox and find out all of the stuff that's going on at Compound Performance, from education to coaching to tech. We cover it all. So today I want to talk to you about energy availability, particularly this idea of Red S. Well, what is Red S? Red S is simply the acronym for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. Last week in the Standard, I gave a presentation on nutritional consideration for female athletes, and a big focus of this was energy availability. Now, energy availability and Red S are issues in both male and female athletes. We just have a tendency to see more proclivity of this towards females because they have a tendency to, whether it's from branding, marketing standpoint, from just an environmental and behavioral standpoint, there is an idea of needing to maintain a low body fat, a performance mindset, all of these things in conjunction, which can lead to a lot of quote-unquote dysfunction. We are seeing more of this in men, obviously, with the growth of social media, and so I think this is a concern across the board, and so I didn't want to limit it just to that female athlete, and so I think taking a broader scope of this and talking about it as Red S rather than just what we call the female triad or just with female athletes. So the first thing we need to describe is what is relative energy deficiency in sport. So from the IOC consensus statement of 2014, we have this definition. The syndrome of Red S refers to impaired physiological functioning caused by relative energy deficiency and includes but is not limited to impairments of metabolic rate, menstrual function, bone health, immunity, protein synthesis, and cardiovascular health. So again, this is something that comes from low energy availability, whether that be through increased output on the field or through decreased input through nutrition. Generally, it's a combination of the two, which is why it's so prevalent in athletes. Now, Red S in and of itself is, I guess, a diagnosis, but there are symptoms along the way that we want to pay attention to that can help you to figure out whether or not this is actually even an issue with your clients. So there's these things, and what we'll do is we'll hopefully have a little pop-up here. You can see that little chart. It's really easy to find. Again, Red S, just look that up. But we will be using the Red S CAT, which is the clinical assessment tool. It's a really simple way to kind of try and figure out if your clients might be suffering from Red S. Now, these symptoms are decreased endurance performance, increased injury risk, decreased training response, impaired judgment, decreased coordination, decreased concentration, irritability, depression, decreased glycogen stores, and decreased muscle strength. If you notice, these things look a whole lot like overtraining. I'm sure you've heard that old adage, there's no such thing as overtraining, there's only undereating and under recovery. I think that's a semantic argument, but what you can see here is obviously not having enough food, not having enough energy availability will lead to symptoms of overtraining, and we know how big of a hole that is to dig out of, so we want to obviously avoid that with our clients. Now, when we're looking at these things, again, the diagnosis is challenging because these are symptoms and not all of them are required. And you know, there is a range of this, obviously, but we also see here health consequences, and so they kind of do the same thing with not just with that screening, but with also with some health consequences. And we talk about immunological, menstrual function, and bone health. Those two are part of the female triad, right? If we see hypothalamic amenorrhea of greater than 3 months, there starts to be some concern there about potentially having that female triad, which is a consequence of low energy availability. Bone health is another one. We start to see decreases in bone density. Again, that's going to be a DEXA scan. That's a little bit longer term thing, but something we want to be aware of. The screening tool for that is often if we see multiple stress fractures within that are related to energy availability. From there, we see impact on the endocrine system. We see a metabolic impact. We see a hematological impact, growth, development. Obviously, if you're working with youth athletes, this is a big concern. Psychological, which those are really ones that long last, and they're ones that are probably already ingrained in a lot of our athletes coming into that. Cardiovascular risk, and then gastrointestinal risk. So this covers the gamut of really the entire body, from physiological to emotional to mental health to even cognitive abilities. So it's vitally important, especially when we're talking about, a lot of you work with youth athletes, whether they be high school, middle school, college age athletes, that these things are so vital to their development later on. Now, again, I talked about this idea of the CAT, of the clinical assessment tool, and they have a really nice kind of green light, yellow light, red light thing. Of kind of low risk are people that have appropriate physique that is managed without undue stress, just healthy eating habits, appropriate energy availability. So how do we determine appropriate energy availability? The simple kind of parameter that has been set is greater than 30 kcals per kilogram of body weight. Note that I said body weight. In a lot of assessments, you'll look to lean body mass, etc. But the interesting thing about RED-S is energy availability in and of itself is not directly correlated to body fat percentage. Someone can have a higher body fat percentage and have lower energy availability than someone else has lower body fat percentage and high energy availability. It is completely individualistic, so we have to understand that someone doesn't have to be like starvation mode or whatever you want to call it, like, super skinny, super lean in order to be seeing low energy availability. We can see all these symptoms, we can see all these health ramifications happen even when someone has what we would consider adequate body fat percentage levels. So that's something to be aware of. Now, so let's say we have a 100 kilo athlete, 220 pounds. We know that their energy availability are going to start at 3,000 calories, and it's probably going to be higher than that, right? But that is a baseline. If you look at most of your female athletes, I would guarantee you to say that most of them are probably in a practice of consuming underneath that guideline. Not uncommon, right? You see a lot of athletes, a lot of athletic women who are consuming 1,200, 1,300 calories, right? That's not going to be enough to support performance. Now, interestingly enough, is great athletes can almost like partition their nutrients in a way that they still perform well on the court, and yet they see a lot of struggle. That's where we start to see the other parts break down, is because the focus really is in that. So how do we set up? Listen, it's not going to be super different from how we would set up a regular nutrition routine for someone in the macro standpoint. Now, if we're going to be using macronutrients, obviously the first consideration is going to be protein. We want to look at that calorie count. We want to make sure that we have that greater than 30 calories per kilogram of body weight. And then we're going to break up our macronutrients in terms of obviously protein, fats, and carbs. Protein, we're going to set as we normally would, about a gram per pound of lean body mass, right? Could do body weight. I generally lean towards the lean body mass, sometimes even just base it on height. If someone is actually heavily muscled, obviously we want to add more protein. If we are if we're concerned about muscle loss, obviously higher protein, satiety concerns, things like that. But as a general rule, a gram per pound of lean body mass. For men, that could be anywhere from 160 to 250 grams of protein, depending on their height. For women, anywhere from 100 to 200, depending on their height, obviously. And so from there, we want to set our fats. Fats, I generally try to set at about 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. I don't do this on lean body mass. Maybe if someone is really large, like an offensive lineman, I might take it down a little bit below that. But generally, those guys are probably going to need the calories anyway, so I'm going to keep it at 0.3. Now, this is very flexible. We can move this around quite a bit because the delineation between carbs and fats isn't super necessary in terms of weight or energy availability. It does, however, play a pretty big role in performance. So we want to see a higher carb diet. We also find that a diet rich in lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, a little bit lower in fat and a more moderate in carb intake is going to be better across the spectrum of most people in terms of nutritional considerations for gut health. They're going to find digestibility better. They're going to find they feel better on that kind of split than they do in something that's more high fat, low carb. And then at the end of the day is performance. Bottom line is all the evidence shows that the glycogen is the preferred fuel for the body. No matter how many keto zealots want to sell it to you, keto is not going to be a performance diet. So we want to be a higher carb, lower fat, high protein diet that's going to really help our athletes. So again, gram per pound of body weight or lean body mass in protein, 0.3 grams per pound of fats, and make up the rest of your calorie with carbs. Real simple there. We want to make sure that we have that energy availability, again, because these symptoms of RED-S are not just symptoms, they lead to long-term health consequences. So we want to make sure that we're setting our athletes up for success. And again, this clinical assessment tool is a great way to go about it. It also will give you a full idea of when they can return to play. And this is also why it's so important to have a healthy network where you can refer out, whether it to be to, mental health professionals. We need doctors' helps, right? Because we need the DEXA scan, we need the blood work to see if this is appropriate, right? And we need them to talk to their doctors about any health concerns they may have. But we are on the front lines in terms of dealing with athletes, dealing with health. We see these people way more than they see their doctors, anything like that. So we want to make sure that we are the ones kind of helping to prompt these health-seeking behaviors in addition to giving them a performance environment. So hopefully that's a nice brief overview of what RED-S is, concerns about energy availability. Obviously, we would do a much deeper dive in the standard, our mentorship group that is a members-only group, but we have hundreds of hours of just excellent material covering physiology, psychology, behavior, nutrition, you name it, it's there. Anything we can do to add to it, we bring special guests on each month. So if you're interested, again, sign up for that newsletter. You'll find out all about the mentorship. You'll find out all about how to grow your business, how to make you a better coach, how to make you more marketable. And the big thing for us is we want to help you be more successful. We want to elevate the bar of this profession. We want to raise the standard, and that's what it's all about. So thank you guys for listening. See you soon.